They're down the rabbit hole. We're streaming on RabbitHoleCentral.tv May 7th, and I'm joined by Rosalee Grable, who's known on the internet far and wide as the WebFairy. Thank you for joining me on this.
Thanks.
Stream.
Thanks for me being here.
Great. Like I said, let's see if I can share it a little bit. Actually, I'll pull this one over. Can you, in that beautiful WebFairy way, figure out how to maybe maneuver that around so you've got
without
your
it
mic
making
to
any noise is difficult. Yeah.
Well, it'll make noise for a little while. That's okay. What I'm going to have on the split screen is the hole. Can you describe this hole?
Well, that's the plane-shaped hole that suddenly appeared that people acted like was from a plane hit. It is plane-shaped and has certain plane-shapedness, but it's certainly not made by any plane because planes do not make plane-shaped holes. There are laws of nature that firmly deny any natural object the ability to both push its way through and vanish at the same time. It's cartoon stuff, expressing cartoon physics. Instead, we have a person who I believe strongly is Edna Cintron, standing and waving.
Right here in this area?
Yeah, she's in that area. Yeah. She stood there faithfully through the entire event. Other people came and went. There weren't very many survivors, but there were a few.
Right.
Her existence there is a solid proof that there was no excessive heat in the creation of the hole, because she's standing there from about at least 15 minutes after the hole was created, and it's hot enough to make her wipe her brow, but it's not hot enough to be the fiery furnace of thousands of degrees that it takes to melt steel.
So there you go. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, Rosalee Grable was, you actually discovered in the North Tower, that was the first hit?
Yeah,
Can you describe that?
There was no plane in the first hit footage. When I first noticed this, I thought that the plane had come through the building like it did on the other building. So I'm not really putting people down for their imagination that planes can fly through buildings.
Because we saw that on television.
Yeah, we saw it on television, and before I thought of it a whole bunch, I imagined it possible too. But my imagination is no more in charge of reality or history than anybody else's. Once I learned that there was no plane there, and it wasn't that the plane was coming out the other side, I noticed that there was some dive bombing sort of looking thingy coming down really fast. I started studying that footage, and it became an obsession of mine for nigh on to a year, trying to make it clearer and learning as much as I could about how to minimize artifacts and improve the coherency enough that we could get at least a good clue as to what was going on in this little bitty detail of a much larger scene.
So now, Rosalee, there are two things. There's the TV fakery, and then Edna waving from the hole is not fakery at all.
Fake.
So these are two separate categories.
And
the photo's not fake.
They are very complementary, because before you can know what's fake, it's good to have a baseline of what is real to be able to compare it to.
Right. And this looks very real. I mean, you know, we didn't see this image very much, actually. I didn't.
Every time that the helicopter would zoom in on the plane-shaped hole, then it would get all vanished, and
yeah, so they didn't put a lot of attention on that.
They must have known there was something going on, which is why they would, every time that the camera moved from the second hit plane-shaped hole, which was also visible from the same angle, and come look at the first hit one, then it's like it would all break up and they'd have to go to some other footage.
Right. So let's go through the timeline again here. This is the first hole in the North Tower, made at what time?
I don't remember those details and will be embarrassed if
But anyway, you have karma with this first hit, because this was when you saw there was no plane in the explosion picture.
Immediately, yeah.
And then how many years later did you develop to where you were at this point with a woman and actually other people? You discovered later there are other people waving from this hole.
It was covered first by Hufschmid, amazingly to me. He did an excellent job of showing the various cold fusion damage and the people who were there. Of course, you know, he's not admitting to cold fusion weaponry doing it, and it was like, it was started with Judy Wood that people started talking out loud about cold fusion weaponry.
When you say admit, why is there such shame about this? Admit. Why do we even use the word? Is it because these are secret
they're
technologies?
wildly secret technologies.
So that if you say it, part of keeping it secret is to ridicule people who talk about it?
Well, yeah, that's their number one weapon is name calling.
So it's like reverse advertising.
Shame, yeah.
Instead of pushing a product, you're hiding a product.
It works that way.
I see.
They want you to think that it's science fiction and UFO until we're all dead, at which point there will be so few people left on the planet that they can enjoy free energy without being able to break themselves free. Free energy belongs to free individual sovereign humans, which right now we don't have, and they're just taking us down.
That's kind of the purpose of my show, is how to find the sovereignty.
Yeah, personal, individual, conscience-based.
Because I find that in my own case, when I feel that they is doing something to me, I'm not as productive as searching to find that power within myself, so that I can identify they, understand they, and if they have knowledge that would be useful for me, then I know what it is that I'm lacking, and I can then try to work with other strategies instead of brute strength, because I clearly don't have that I don't have the same power as those who have what I'm wanting. So I try to create connections of empathy, and that's impressed me with Marshall Rosenberg, that wouldn't you rather have somebody do what you want them to do, not because they're afraid of you, and not because they want to be rewarded by you, but because they actually understand why you want it done. And then it doesn't matter whose power it is you're sharing.
Yeah, well, the cross-current of power that's created that way has benefit to both sides. A real profit is always mutual.
Yeah.
And we've been sold a bill of goods that profit equals theft, which is a downright lie, no matter how many people have been brainwashed to think that way. The only real profit, it profits all involved in a cooperative fashion. And the larger the group of people who are able to cooperate, the larger the profit.
And the cooperation is more profound if people aren't suppressing their feelings and their needs, particularly the need for more knowledge, for the sake of maintaining inclusion in the group. You know, it would be a more meaningful unity if people are together, because they actually enhance each other's exploration and understanding. Not that they say, oh, you're thinking the wrong thing, or you're inspired by the wrong person.
You're not living up to my standards, therefore you're blah blah.
So again, if you can first do self-empathy and feel your own needs, that you know, in the case of when you actually have to use these exercises, it's usually because your needs aren't getting met. So if you can feel the grief that you have for them not being met, then you can at least start to articulate to yourself what's missing, and then you have a breath of a chance to articulate to somebody else who, my experience has been, if you can't figure out what you need, they aren't going to figure it out.
They aren't going to figure it out. No,
Yeah.
Their crystal ball's even cloudier than your own.
So anyway, I want to see if we can get a hold of Violet Jones, and Violet Jones is the wife of Alex Jones, and I have 2 numbers here, and let's see if it works. 45205. Is that 05 or 06 or 08?
I'd say 6 is a guess.
Maybe I better try that again. 462. Or 452?
You know, sometimes I do think that
0,
rehearsal
6.
would not be a bad idea
Right.
in the overall.
Well, let's see if it works. I'll try the other one that's clearer.
We're sorry.
That's not one.
Is not a word. Consult your direct.
Oh, it's ringing.
Half a loaf.
Guess that's not
Hello,
working.
we are unable to answer right now. To send a fax, please start transmission. To leave a voice message, please speak after the beep. Thank you.
Hello, this is a message for Violet Jones from Paula Gloria from Farther Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm joined right at this moment with Rosalee Grable from Chicago, and we are 9/11 truth activists. We would like to talk to you about the role of women in advancing knowledge. And we understand that you have a great interest in poetry, and we'd like to talk to you about your creative contribution and how you see your relationship as a woman to your famous husband, Alex Jones, and you know, how you support his work, or how you you know, in your marriage relationship, how you advance deeper positions or deeper understandings of what's going on in the world, and how you contribute more as a couple. So if you're inspired to pursue this, we're feeling that we need more women involved in the pursuit of truth. Or can you express more than that?
Oh, no, all I can do is cheer and say, hi, Violet. What we need is more people that aren't bludgeoning us with testosterone.
So you can reach us, Violet, at 212-982-0021. I was hoping to get you live on camera, but when you call back, we won't waste your time, and we can get the camera started up, or we can have a private conversation first, but we really, really look forward to connecting with you. So thank you very much. Bye. Well, that's good. Now let's see if I can call back Josh from We Are Change in Colorado. You weren't here yesterday when I called him, but I was trying to find out who had sent me an email that was very mean, and I could see it definitely wasn't him.
I'm not even sure they actually believe their own meanness.
Oh, well.
And I think they're projecting.
Well, he had no idea, because he doesn't know anything about the website. But I was looking for public relations on them. They answered this time yesterday. We'll leave a message.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. 72026155831 is not available.
Hi, this is Paula Gloria returning a call that I said I would return yesterday when I talked to a fellow there at We Are Change in Colorado named Josh. I had a very nice conversation with him, and just expressed my need for clarity and I guess you'd say my need for approval and acceptance because of an email that I got. I had said that I've been working with We Are Change people for a while, and was interested in pursuing more research, and found that my desire for more knowledge and to pursue more research was meeting with some confusion, and I wanted to see if I could clarify that. I know that Josh was not the person who wrote the email that's already been posted yesterday, and I was hoping that we could just advance our connection. So my name is Paula Gloria. My number is 982-0021, and I would appreciate a connection. Thank you. Anything you want to say?
No, just hi. I met someone named Truth Move yesterday, walking in a Brooklyn neighborhood, and he didn't seem like such a horrible sort, even though he's saying awful things about Alex Constantine. I'm hoping that people can not come together out of unity, keeping their own mean notions going, and we're just supposed to nod along to their meanness, but that we can overcome this and face the future that has free energy in it, instead of the traditional little boxes style lies that people are swallowing whole.
You mean lies that we don't have free energy?
Yeah, pretending.
Well,
that
what we're trying to say is, by looking into more details about how the World Trade Center came down, there's a bright side to it. It's a demonstration of a power that could be used by all the people, instead of us sort of huddling in fear and confusion and division and fighting, because we're lacking in knowledge.
Yeah.
So that's all we're wanting. We're just wanting clarity and a connection. So hope you can call us back. I wanted to pursue it with Josh, but anybody there from We Are Change in Colorado, we'd love to hear from you. So thanks. I wonder how, I guess I had a long message capacity because I never heard a beep beep that went off. I was telling Rosalee today when we were talking in the park about how the Concordia Foundation could meet its need for contribution, because all human beings have the same needs, and one of the greatest needs we have as human beings is the need to contribute. So when people work together in a group, then that group will also reflect the same human need that each individual has, which is to contribute. And I thought a nice contribution that we could make is to assemble specific DVDs that elucidate different areas of expertise that the community you've been working with for 7 years, working in, sometimes more functional and less, but still, it's...
Yeah, and because we are leaderless and everybody is on their own and doing their own thing, their own way, for their own personal goals and satisfaction, I think that gives us a breadth and a depth that adhering to a certain script lacks. I think that's why no matter how much they fight against us, we keep getting stronger.
When you say a script, I think people understand different things. You mean saying this is what we will believe in and this is what we will...
Yeah. Most of the sites, I'm thinking
share.
Specifically of Truth Move, whose guy I met yesterday, have a certain list of permissible topics and a certain list of things that are not spoken of.
Oh, no topics?
Oh boy, they have
so
a list of no topics.
It seems to be like, then it does seem to be like a religion.
Yeah,
right? The things you can think that will make you free, and things that you better shudder and fear because you'll be condemned. But so our idea is, if anybody in any group or doing anything sort of says, you know what, I want to try out a little more knowledge.
Well, anybody who wants to do anything forward-looking, forward-thinking, and teaching is fine, but the carping and complaining and, oh, there are this and oh, there are that, is completely useless.
Right.
Backbiting.
And we don't want to do it either. That's why I was saying, let's look at something that's proactive, and my idea is to create DVDs of expertise, and as you contact us, you can say what you would like to have more knowledge about, maybe the hole where people are waving, maybe the TV fakery, maybe the energy weapons, maybe 0 point or cold fusion, would be, keep a little eye on this.
While we're here, I also want to mention that yesterday I went to 116th Street where Edna Cintron's memorial is, where their shop used to be, and I met their landlady. And
again, this is Edna for people who are tuning in late.
Yeah.
She's waving from the hole here.
Yeah. So today, or maybe tomorrow, but I hope today, I want to go back to her neighborhood with my computer and maybe even a computer projector, and the building where they used to have Sweet Williams Floral has like a construction plywood all around it in the front. And it would be enough that with the landlady's permission, hopefully, I could paste up enough white paper to use it as a place to show on the wall there my Edna videos.
Oh.
So.
I want to also say, you know, some people say that this is an emotional issue and women are, you know, inclined to be very heart-oriented and to gain inspiration from a courageous soul who has passed. But, you know, We Are Change is always talking about being dedicated to the first responders. So I don't think this is unusual to show
Edna
compassion.
was a first responder.
Yeah, she responded by waving for an hour from the hole that didn't have an airplane in it. So that means a lot. But more than that, I know when I went up with Rosalee to Spanish Harlem, it was a very connecting with nature experience. We had the shower of the little leaves, seed leaves that were coming down. The children were playing in it. And so you had a sense of the ongoingness of life, and that it doesn't have to be that if you become a 9/11 truther, you know, you're going to be sitting at, you know, wild hours of the night, you know, on your computer connecting with other people into conspiracy theories. That it's just a natural process of growing and learning and understanding more about the world in which we live. I said yesterday in reviewing patriotism, because they said I was a traitor to the country, whoever info@wearechangecolorado.org is, and I was thinking, what is a patriot and what is somebody who is the opposite of a traitor to the country? And I pulled out Molly's ancestor, who was Robert Patterson, who was a pioneer in Dayton, Ohio, and I thought, what heartbreak he must have also have gone through when they had to break the treaties with the American Indians. And could we have used nonviolent communication then to figure out more successful strategies where people of different cultures can work together instead of feeling that there's scarcity and there's not enough for me. I wonder if that's a herald on the scarcity. Farther down the rabbit hole.
Hello.
Hello? Can you hold a second? RabbitHoleCentral.
Hey, baby, it's Warren.
Hey, are you watching us?
No.
Oh, we're streaming right now. We were talking about scarcity being transcended because I was saying, when somebody gave me a nasty comment about being a traitor, I thought, what's the opposite of a traitor? You know, like, what's a real patriot? And I took Molly's relative, who was the father or the grandfather of the man who started National Cash Register in Dayton. And he was an early pioneer in Ohio when that was the Wild West. And I got to thinking what it must have been like when they had to constantly break treaties with the American Indians, and that there was this feeling that there wasn't enough resources for both the Indians and for the people coming over from Europe. And that if we had better skills of communication, we could have perhaps today been even more successful because we worked together and didn't kill each other. Any thoughts, Warren?
Any thoughts? Well, I forgot why I was calling you, Paula.
Well, I placed a call to Alex Jones's wife. I'm joined here. If you go to RabbitHoleCentral.tv, you can see me and Rosalee streaming. And what we were trying to do is see if we could connect with Alex Jones's wife and see if we can get a little more feminine energy into 9/11 truth, and then that quality of the feminine that's most appreciated, which is harmony and kindness and patience. And
which would be really different than the typhoon we face of hatred and negativity, mostly of which comes from men.
Yeah, but not exclusively. I fess up to
White men, mostly.
Huh? No, well, I have my share of typhoons in my life. I have to admit. You know, I don't think this is a sex issue, but anyway, I want to introduce people who are just tuning in. I'm joined right now by Warren Cuccurullo he's famous for many things, I think, for kind of connecting with Frank Zappa at 15 years old.
Yeah, I was about 17 when I met him.
Yeah,
I got in his band, 21.
So you had the capacity to like comprehend his musical genius. Would that be fair to say? And then how did you then hook up with Duran Duran?
Well, that came after Zappa. Two of the ex-members, myself and the drummer Terry Bozzio, and his wife Gail, we started a band in the new wave era, right around 1979, 1980, called Missing Persons.
Uh-huh.
And
Wow.
it was about 1980, we got together the first time. And we lasted about 6 years. We were signed to Capitol Records. And we split up in 86, and Duran Duran was on Capitol Records. And they heard that our drummer and bass player was available for Missing Persons. The guitarist from Duran before me, Andy Taylor, needed a band, so he hired those two guys, Terry and Patrick, the Missing Persons drummer and bass player. And I called Duran Duran and said, you know, your guitar player is in Los Angeles with my band, the rest of my band, and what do you guys do? And you need a guitar player? That was basically it. 3 weeks later, I wound up in the band.
Yeah, but
lasted till 2001.
yeah, but there was
Wow.
no clue then how famous they were going to get in the upcoming, you think? Or did you
And
know?
Duran, by the time Missing Persons had broken up in 86, Duran Duran was already the biggest band in the world.
Oh,
Yeah, so I got in on the downswing, and then we kind of came back full force in 93 with an album called The Wedding Album. They had a few big hits on it, and kind of reestablished us in the 90s.
Do you consider yourself, Warren, a lucky guy?
The luckiest guy.
Really? And do you find that the harder you work, the luckier you get?
Not when you're old.
Oh, really?
Actually, no, what I find now is, because what I'm working towards now is just trying to make people aware of the deception of 9/11, etc. 9/11 is the big one, but there's been subsequent deceptions and prior deceptions to 9/11, and I wasn't aware of them until a year ago. And so now when I do what I consider work is, you know, talking to people and turning them on to these two clips that I found, you know, the 9/11 Octopus Part 8 and 9/11 Amateur Part 2, which for me was the culmination of all my 9/11 research after 11 months, seeing the video evidence that Rosalee and Nico and everybody was going on about for years. I finally got into the video evidence, and, you know, I'm getting a very, very quick return on waking people up with those two clips. So
Say, Warren,
working hard, and I'm getting a response, so that's good. I don't know if this is if we're all going to eventually get together and stop this mess.
Warren, can you kind of talk about your process? You say it was 1 year. When was the first time you heard about 9/11 truth?
Well, since I was a CNN, MSNBC junkie for so many years, I dread thinking how much brain damage
It's
was
your
done.
story. I'll let you take over.
CNN was covering a Rosie O'Donnell story. That's something she questioned something about 9/11 and mentioned this building number 7 that came down on the day, and I only knew that 2 buildings came down on the day. So I typed it in, you know, straight away. I typed in WTC 7, and I saw a clip of it going down in 6 seconds, and that's how long it took me to wake up and realize there was, you know, everything we were told about Arabs and this and that was completely false. So I had a friend who died, a childhood friend who died in the towers. So I thought to myself, if it happened to me, he might have, you know, wanted to look into it for me, just to say, hey, my friend Warren died in there, and there's questions. I want to find out what it is. So I did it. You know, that's what I said to myself. And 11 months later, like I said, I went through everything, and the last stage was the video evidence, and for me, that's the most damning of all. So it'd be a lot easier for me, I've noticed, to wake people up, to get them to the state where I am now. I can get them there in basically 10 minutes. They don't have all of the knowledge, but they know that they were lied to. And then it's up to them to go and do the rest of the research. And you have to go back into history and see why we're here. You know, you have to go back 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, 400 years, 1,000 years, and then you kind of got the picture.
Yeah. Yeah, I was an MSNBC/CNN junkie before I discovered 2, and sort of woke up with the fact that despite having all the quote news as the backdrop of my life, I knew nothing. I knew less than nothing, because I'd been nodding for stuff that turned out to not be real. And that was even before I discovered there were no planes. My first fact was that a Bush family were Nazis, which I had no clue of, even that, to now, very basic piece of information.
Yeah, that's something I discovered early on into my search, about what was going on. You find out about Prescott Bush, and then you go, well, how do people who get arrested for anti-government actions wind up being senators?
Nah.
Well, you have a lot of money, and you start something called the USO.
As you and Rosie are talking, I'm thinking sometimes the elite researchers, and I can fall into this myself, I get so excited about the TV fakery, I forget that I had a learning curve, and yet you're saying you're taking people straight away, you're moving them right in to the TV fakery. Can you kind of, both of you, talk about that as a strategy?
I think that's, well, with those two clips, first of all, the research is rock solid. The last 7 years that have passed by, when you see these renderings, they're so bad. They really are. They're really bad, and they all contradict each other. The Second Strike ones, they have different trajectories. They're different shaped airplanes. It's ridiculously bad. And, the only way this really could have worked, if there was no recording technology, if that could have just gone out and they could show their replays, but, the masses don't have tapes and the masses can't store things on their hard drive, they would have got away with it. Because they would have shoved it down our throats. We would have seen it a few times on the day, a couple of replays, and then we go, oh yeah, planes, planes, planes. Man, when you see George Bush, when he's in that, when he has that famous flub, when he says he saw when he's talking to I don't know where he was, but he's talking and he's saying how he saw the first plane hit, and the TV was obviously on, and that to me, after finding out about that there were no planes, that to me screams of his programming from his handlers telling him, George, I know this is hard for you, but listen, no matter what anybody ever asks you about 9/11, just remember to say plane, okay? If you forget everything else, just say the word plane. That's what they're selling.
Yeah, that's
selling
what
the
they're
planes
selling.
big time.
Yeah.
There were none. There were no planes, no hijackers, fake passengers. Read Operation Northwoods, and we're there. There's no questions.
Have you watched the rest of BS Registration's videos? There are some more recent ones where he covers this, how they use the word plane to keep the hypnosis going.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got brilliant stuff.
It's just like telling people, here's the detour, go straight ahead, don't even worry, and you're jumping off a cliff. Yeah, just go right there, everything you need is right that way, straight to your right, just keep going, don't even look, and you're off the end of the cliff.
Yeah.
That's what they want you to do.
I'm right here in Manhattan, where I go to Pete's Bar, which is the oldest bar in New York, even, where O. Henry wrote his Gift of the Magi. Even it's very historic and very wonderful, and the clientele's fairly well heeled. And so I talk about 911 with them, and almost invariably, first they tell me that they saw both planes. And they've got to reflect on that a little, and like 5 minutes later they're ready to admit that they didn't really in person see both planes or either plane either, and just understanding and realizing that they didn't really see it is itself a big, I'm not going to call it revelations. I was going to use the word blow, but I think I meant revelation.
Well, all the fake witnesses seriously blow. I have to agree with that.
Oh. Well, these are people, just in their own life who are apparently running around believing that they really saw both planes.
And I kind of clarified it with him. The thing is, what I did with him when he said he saw a plane and I knew there were no planes, I had to think, what were the distraction planes, But he said he saw something go into the building, so I kind of really dragged it out of him. Where were you? Okay, he was in Jersey City. He was on a balcony. Where was the television, and was it on? Were you running back and forth to the TV? that level, who knows what you really saw? You know, I know what I saw on my television, and I wasn't there. You know, I was here, and I see from BS Registration's compilation on 9/11 Octopus Part 8, I saw 3 stations at the same time what they were showing, and they're all different. Now, that usually doesn't happen on a breaking news story. So, something very fishy. And then if you see 9/11 Amateur Part 2, you see that there was no first strike. The Norday brothers forged that shot, so that opens up a whole other can of worms. So why not bring someone in at the deep end? You know, you show them right away, their eyes tell them what they're seeing. I don't have to say, oh, this guy, he wired the building with explosives, and this guy paid this guy off to be quiet, and this guy did this. No. Just watch what your news media did to you, and take it from there.
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily believe 911 Amateur either. He's way too leaning toward missiles.
Well, yeah, I think it's all pre-placed charges, you know. If you look at the shot, there's a shot in Octopus 8 towards the middle of the movie, in 9/11 Octopus, towards the middle of the film, where there's a loop of the second hit without the plane in it.
Right.
And you just see the charges going off, and it's just charges.
There may have indeed have been some quote charges, but to me you're way too traditional controlled demolition for my nerves.
What, seeing the towers come down?
Well, not only the towers come down, but the holes appearing are both evidence of cold fusion weaponry that they are hiding from us.
Stuff I don't know about,
to me, yeah, you'll catch up. I have no worry about you.
The details of it, but I know.
And this is not a detail.
Anything that you've been trying out, you're going to use it. Anything that's going to
if you can start out with the Building 7 stuff, which was all intentionally created to as a psyop, apparently, because Jim Hoffman was the first with the Building 7 information, and it turns out he works for MSRI, which is a consortium of defense contractors.
Oh, yeah, well, this is all about weapons and
yeah, well, they're hiding the weapons that they actually used.
And et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and giving what they think is a rational explanation that people will believe, aka controlled demolition, which controlled demolition isn't like volcanic activity like we saw there. This blew up. There's no pancaking. That it sort of has the same effect, and I'm not at all surprised if they did, wire the place with charges and all to give it that effect, so that when their plan fell apart, they'd be able to blame controlled demolition. But seriously, we need to look at this as cold fusion weapons that de-weaponize the technology, the energy forces that they used would be much better powering our cars and heating our homes and giving us light as a wireless electricity.
Yeah, I brought up Benjamin Fulford on Paula's show the other day with Nico, and he supposedly is in touch with an Asian contingency that is completely against what's going on with the New World Order. And
personally, I think their Asian contingency is more likely in charge of it than ours. And
this was an underground group, sort of like an Asian secret society that he's talking about, that is planning on, taking action against certain individuals like David Rockefeller, etc., if they don't compromise and kind of stop the genocide, etc., etc.
Say, Warren, as a great showman, you've hobnobbed all over, and I would imagine you've had the opportunity to meet some of these people that unfortunately are demonized. When I say unfortunately, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be held to task for what they've done, but what is the strategy once you've really figured out what's happened? You're very clear what weapon was used, how it was funded, who was behind the funding. how do you connect with people you start to realize are responsible and are actually highly respected in society? If you meet them at a party, what do you do?
Well, I usually meet people who's in places that I own. I have 2 restaurants up the street, so I have to watch what I say. And I ran into someone the other night, and it got a little bit out of hand because the guy had just gone back into the service, and I hadn't seen him in 3 years. And we had a little conversation, and I kind of huffed away because I just couldn't believe the guy would, be working for those people. He was a lovely kid. I know that I know him for a few years, not well, but
and willing to put his own life on the
got a
line.
little bit out of hand.
For what we know is a pack of lies.
You don't want to piss somebody off in your own restaurant.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I met someone who I hadn't seen, another person who's very big in the music business, who was offered a job, the president of Warner Brothers. So when I hear that, the first thing that comes into my mind is, how much of a scumbag are you? It's kind of weird because, I was around probably a lot of people who, they have black hearts and no soul. That's the way I look at it. I know humans, and humans are loving creatures, and some people just are not, and those people usually are in positions of power. They get there because they have no heart. That's how they get promoted.
Oh, but just a second. You're not saying that the only way you can be promoted is to have a black heart.
To get into positions of power, you have a black heart.
Really?
You have to show signs of that you will do anything to attain power and to keep it. You will do anything, meaning you will kill, you will lie, you will do anything. Those qualities are rewarded in the military,
So we have to break that at a lower level.
Special. If you watch Kay Griggs, I watched 7 hours of Kay Griggs interviews numerous times just to get all the details. And she spells it out. She's a military insider. She was married for, I think, 11 years to Colonel George Griggs.
Yeah.
And she has his diary from Beirut. And he was an alcoholic, would beat her up, and would talk a lot. So she's got all the details.
Yeah.
She names names of top military people who practice all kinds of strains, and no one sued her. And I think Kay Griggs' interviews gives people definitely an overview of how far the corruption has gone and where it's based. It usually all comes, according to her, from Army intelligence. They run the
joint
show,
military intelligence, not specifically Army. Although if her husband was Army, that's the section of it she'd have seen. And she goes quite a ways back. They claim to have had an interview with her since, but that turned out to be phony, so I assume she's dead. When we first uncovered this information, it was always out there, but we hadn't caught on to it or knew about it. I hung the 8 WMV files on my server, and overnight, 1,000 gigs of downloads. I got swamped.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
I haven't heard about anything about her, so.
Yeah, she's hard to know about now. And personally, I'm wondering, are you able to come here to New York? Can you come and be part of a live fundraiser?
I'd love to. We got to work out timing and everything. And
I'd love for you to see RabbitHoleCentral and notice what a miracle that this little piece of heaven is.
Hello?
Yeah.
Did we lose you?
It was a dream and an inspiration of mine. I believe not in labeling people, but trying to understand the needs that we all share, that all human beings have the same needs. We just have different strategies to meet them. And even somebody may be making us very unhappy. If we can create a connection with them, we may find a way that they can meet their needs just as well or even better, as a result of sharing what's going on with us. Like I know you, Warren, are very concerned to have harmony in the 9/11 truth movements, and I said
to Danny from We Are Change, I said, how can you have a war in a truth movement? Makes no sense to me at all, especially when
Well, how do you feel about the cold fusion process that Stephen Jones 25 years ago was so instrumental in smashing? You know, what could have liberated us from oil? How do you feel about that? I mean...
Well, that's what I was saying about when I started talking about Fulford before, Benjamin Fulford. He said these guys have everything we need to live in a perfect life and a perfect planet.
We could all have enough wealth to have anything we really wanted, enough that people would discover that too much is just as bad as not enough for one's soul and spirit.
But if we lived in a society that really had justice, we would all right now be able to sue Time Warner, AOL, CNN, NBC, the Pentagon, etc., for inflicting MK Ultra on us and our children, and broadcasting fraudulent images and selling us a war on 9/11. I think we all have a lawsuit that would end poverty.
Yeah,
but
the courts are under the gold-fringed flag. The courts belong to them.
Yes.
Trying to sue.
But he's saying in an ideal
article
world.
on Alex Jones's site today.
Okay.
It's something that I think could definitely start a dialogue. Where is it?
Can I just say,
about,
while you're Warren,
yeah.
while you're looking that up, can I just make a comment on, in a just world, we could sue the Pentagon and Time Warner and so on.
Oh, yeah, love that.
I have another strategy, because I've been through, I think, 4 lawsuits in my life. You know, I've been sued 4 different times, and it's not such a pleasant process.
Oh, I know that.
And I've watched the process, but I have a better strategy to lay on the table, and that is to distribute more widely capital ownership of these corporations, and that with ownership in the hands of more people, theoretically everybody, you'd have a better outcome. Instead of
government back in the hands of people first, because
well,
the
no,
corporations are the government now.
But,
this is fascism. So
no, but what I'm saying, Warren, is that
we're screwed. Let's face it.
The researchers. No, the researchers I'm working with are indicating this is not about the government. It's about an outside job that bought off the media. So if we could see this, just like a good doctor can get rid of a virus or get rid of cancer, there are systems of knowledge in other parts of the world where cancer is easily dealt with. So that you get rid of the tumor and the problem. We don't want to kill the patient. And that's why I fear that when people dislike their government, they don't have the best strategies of survival and flourishing and growing and moving forward.
And that's if you're stuck in that left-right paradigm, if you really believe in government. What I'm saying is we need to be able to elect people who are good people, who are not tied to other agendas. That's something we haven't been able to do for 100 years.
Yeah. Well, we're working on that as a new system, because we've noticed that we can't just to drop all this horrible stuff onto people about how the media has lied to them and showed them cartoons and is leading them around by fictionalizing what they believe to be news. Once people discover that's happening, it's like a black hole opens under them, and that's not our intent. Because there is, this real, or could be real, on the other side of the veil, to have the free energy that they use to poof buildings with, only for us, and to rein in and control, not destroy the corporate structures. We'd have to take away their corporate personhood, besides spreading out the ownership to give less power. Once it's concentrated, always turns bad. It isn't the fault of any black-hearted person, but any one person carrying too much power. The power turns them bad.
That's true, but they're all in groups. These agendas are passed down through the groups, through the secret societies, through the foundations. So it is like an external from government.
Yeah.
In every way, shape, and form. I mean, Margaret Thatcher said on her New World Order tour that we could never. She said there's a parallel cabinet that's made up of, former prime ministers, statesmen, diplomats, and we carry on the agenda. We could never do it, she said, in a democratic system because it would take way too long.
No, they get away with it because we believe in them and we cover up for them. I've seen the cover-up coming more from people who would benefit the cover-up being gone.
Can you explain that again?
People who they claim to really believe in truth, but they believe in rationality, and rationality means that they believe in what they believe in to be what is real, and so any lie that helps support their false sense is truth to them.
Just a second, I'm a little puzzled. Rationality is not a bad thing.
I don't know, say that it
You're
is
the
or
most
isn't.
rational person I know. When
No.
you try to analyze
No.
something, and you don't. When I think of irrational, I think of
No,
something
I see
unreal.
rational rationalists rationalizing rationally.
Doesn't not sound like a word anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, let me put it this way.
Found that article.
But just a second. I don't believe
Okay.
in good people and bad people or powerful. Obviously, there's powerful people and people who can't even eat, who don't even have a house to be in. So for sure, you have people who command wealth and people who don't have enough wealth. But as people, I don't believe there's good and bad people. I think that there's just people who we haven't connected with yet, and if they knew who we were, would realize their life would be richer as a result of having us in their life.
Think of a guy like Al Haig. Have you ever seen him interviewed?
No.
Oh, Al Haig.
Yeah, I seen him back in the 80s when
He is a nasty piece of work.
yeah, with delusional is the word I'd use.
Oh, my phone is beeping. Hold on. Oh, it's okay. It's just a junk call. So anyway, this article on InfoWars today, to me, looks like an open door. It's by Jeff Cohen from the Guerrilla News Network, and it's titled "Military Propaganda Pushed Me Off TV." And he worked for MSNBC, and he gets into it in this article posted on the 29th of April. So, yeah, I went through that, and it's pretty much, leaves the door open to saying, well, yes, the media is the head of the snake. Let's get real here. Of course they're pushing military propaganda. It's one and the same. Rosalee, do you have any, do you think that the networks were hijacked that day? Or, I mean, since we know that there were, they definitely had moles in the news, like Rick Leventhal, for example, who was conducting the fake interviews with fake witnesses. So we know they had people already planted in there. But
Yeah.
do you think it was like a hijacking of the airwaves that day?
I think it's planned. They have it set so that all of the news outlets can be hijacked is a good enough word by the Pentagon at any time. They had an accidental test of that system once and then hushed that back up before I could save the article about it. But they were having what was supposed to be a localized test of this system that wound up, at least momentarily, taking over most of the media. And Simon Shack has shown that all of the footage is pool footage from the same place that was taken over. So, yeah, I'd say hijacking the media is way more likely than hijacking planes that
No, I know that the plane is...
had been canceled a couple weeks in advance. Yeah, and I think that the government believes the media. They get their information from MSNBC/CNN just like we used to.
Yeah, but they get it from the Pentagon first, though.
Well, the Pentagon, yeah, that's where it's being injected into the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to teach transcendental meditation not only in San Quentin Prison, but also in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I mean, I taught under a colonel who'd been to Vietnam 3 times, so I've had a little more experience with the military. I don't think, again, I think it's very important not to label people, because I certainly know, Warren, right now, I would sure like to shed some labels people have put me under, and Nico Haupt, they're really raking him over the coals, rather than just looking at the information. I mean, if we're doing comedy, okay, you know, look beyond that and to see what is the message about.
Yeah, there was some really interesting footage intermingled with a horrendous article by Kurt Nemo, who made his reputation in more geopolitical items, but to turn this up on InfoWars, it's just, it's the first time that Nico has actually been mentioned by name, so that they have to try to smear him. Of course, you know, if I'm ever mentioned by Alex Jones or InfoWars or anything, I'm sure they'll try to smear me too.
I sure hope not.
Well, I've put up with it and managed to survive so far. You know, we're pushing on 7 years now. But the very second that I first discovered there was no plane in the first hit footage, no, I was young and tender then, and it was able to hurt me more then. Now I've heard it all, and if each new generation has to be introduced to me very negatively, well, at least they're introduced to me, and the word is spreading despite the very best attempts by by whatever they've got out there to
Discredit people.
Yeah, to discredit people, and no matter how much they say or what they say, the word keeps spreading farther, because as soon as they open up their mouths about anything at all, the truth just jumps out.
So I'm just...
Are you guys aware of anyone who's doing like a real kind of criminal prosecutorial investigation of this? Because I remember seeing, you know, like a year ago...
We've done as much...
John O'Neill.
No, we're not. We're more interested, at least I am, you know, like I'm saying, because I've been the recipient of such harsh labels without people looking at the knowledge I'm trying to push, I'm trying to give somebody else that same benefit of the doubt. Like, let's get Alex Jones, let's get the people, this guy, the geopolitical guy, and say, instead of demonizing Nico, calling him COINTELPRO, let's put the data on the table. Yeah. I'm more interested in that, because investigations, oftentimes people say, I'm going to find the bad guy and punish him, and punishment never works.
We've already got the most people behind bars of anybody in the country.
In the world.
In the world, and...
Our prisons are full.
Yeah, claiming that putting more people into prisons by some... and we've done the research. We're ready. If there were any place to prosecute, we have compiled and collected for 6 and something years now. We've done the research.
Okay, so then the research community is the place where if there was ever a prosecutor, he would come to the research community and take all.
That would be nice if they were real, but this is an excuse to cover up and hide all of the research that we've done by coating it with a fresh layer of bullshit, as they continue to ignore and defile our research and instead replace it with their own lame hangout version, plane hugging.
Hey, look, you're the one, okay? You know what these guys can do. You saw how bad their renderings were. Let me know this. Do you think they will actually be able to fool us with the rapture of Revelations?
It's an ongoing project. So far, they seem to be, but people are wising up. Maybe we have a dozen people that now know on the ground in Manhattan who didn't know previously. But to me, even 12 is a big number, because me and Nico and Holmgren were the three of us for like, I don't know, almost 3 years without anybody really, sticking up for us or catching on with us. And then as there was just a blooming forth when people finally started to catch on in their own heads, and it's grown exponentially since. I expect the on-the-ground business to grow at the same sort of exponential rate, but at the same time, people take time to grok what we're saying and how to integrate that into what they already know. So I've learned patience.
I mean, you can understand, Warren, how painful it must be if you've done all the research and then you see these so-called truth movements. I mean, I know you like all these people and you want to see unity,
Well, it just
but
doesn't
they're not using original research. They haven't done it themselves, and then they turn around and call the very ones whose research they're using COINTELPRO.
Yeah, they cherry pick us
But
and
let me
otherwise
tell you,
ignore us.
It's a lot easier to look into the research, like those two clips, which just show you the two planes, 9/11 Amateur Part 2,
Yep.
9/11 Octopus Part 8. It'll take you about 11 minutes to watch both of those clips, and then you will know that there were no planes used. Now, if you want to look into Nico's background, your background, my background, find out who's connected to who's being paid by the CIA, the MI5, whoever.
We wish if the CIA
It's
would
look at the,
pay
take
Nico, we'd
11
take the
minutes
money.
to look at what the guys are talking about who you think are COINTELPRO, and then you tell me what your eyes see, and you tell me if they are right or wrong. Very
Warren,
simple.
Warren, we really need you to come out here. We could really use your energy.
You know, I'll be there, baby.
You know?
Because if you need it, I'm there.
Yeah.
Soon?
We just got to work
Can
out
you
the time.
can you come soon?
Yeah, it would be great if you could be here when she goes on Howard Stern on the 19th.
Okay, well, let's figure that one out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are really thinking that there are people, Warren, in the media that really want to do the right thing, and we really want
Yeah.
to give that a chance. We want to look
So
on the
people in the
positive.
media,